What do you fear?
I know what I'm afraid of, but putting it up there, it's a little bit hard.
Okay, breathe. You can do this. You can do this.
I have a really big fear of spiders.
Spiders terrify me.
I fear birds.
I fear roller coasters.
Heights. The dark.
Ghosts, thunder, Nicolas Cage.
It seems like a trivial fear compared to some other things I could be scared of, but that's my fear.
When it comes to like the big kind of fears, my biggest fear is that I'm gonna end up alone.
I'm so afraid that no one will love me or that no one will care for me. I'm afraid that I'm just always going to be that way and I'm not going to find anyone.
One of the things that really freaks me out is losing my hair. And that is something that I have to come to terms with because
around here, so many people are scared to leave, but honestly, I'm scared to stay.
This is the first time in my life where I'm actually getting a say in what happens, really. And it scares me a lot because I don't want to make the wrong decision. I don't want to screw up.
I battled drugs for 3 years and messed my life up pretty bad. I've been clean sober for 2 years, but I very deeply fear relapse. Daily struggle.
Going back into that pit of anxiety and depression, self-harm, and not being able to eat or sleep.
I don't feel anything anymore. I don't feel happy. I don't feel unhappy. I just feel empty. What I fear the most is to feel empty. You see, when I was 8 years old, my mother had cancer and she passed away. Next Saturday, it's going to be a year since my dad passed away as well. So I really do hate to remember those days because I don't want to feel like that again. It's like something inside of you, it's missing.
What I'm afraid of is losing people that are close to me.
And I know it's a part of life, but it's just so hard to think that someone who's been there since day one is one day not going to be.
I see a future.
Growing up, I think I'm living a boring life.
Stuck in your old routine, work.
It's often what others want for you. It's the easiest thing to do. It pays the bills. I don't want to live my life that way. And my greatest fear is that that is exactly what I'll end up doing.
I'm a little bit nervous.
Okay. That is what I fear most. That's what I fear.
But I don't like to dwell on what I fear, because if you just worried your whole life about what you fear, are you ever really even living? And I've kind of accepted that that's something that I'm going to have to deal with in my life, and that may happen to me, and it doesn't scare me. I'm okay with it.
If we didn't have struggles, we'd all be pretty boring people.
I feel like we live in a society, in a world where we let our fear keep us from doing the things that we really want to do. You have to use your time for something that you love.
Fear causes people to cower down, which is terrible. No one should have to feel like they have to back out because of something they fear.
Fear itself is in your head. It's a mentality.
It's not bad to admit that you're afraid of something.
Feels good, I think. Fear can keep you going.
We just must learn how to deal with it. So, yeah. Bye.
Well, they did my work for me. Have a good day. This month, we've been looking at 4-letter words. And Dixon said that growing up, the only 4-letter words that he heard were words like work and soap and love. Well, when I was growing up, my family didn't use a whole lot of 4-letter words. In fact, it wasn't until I got to junior high that I learned any. And I learned a lot then. When I went to the Army, 4-letter words just didn't cut it because, well, in the Army, you just got to get creative and get your point across. But there is one word that I learned in junior high, and it was one of those 4-letter words that when I got into the Army, we didn't have to get creative with. This word has had more influence on my life than I'd like to admit, and so when we were choosing words for this series, I was kind of excited that I got to say a bad word in church. And not just a bad word in church, I got to say it right here in the pulpit. And I'll give you a hint. It's the worst of the 4-letter words, and it starts with an F. Now, the word is fear, and if you were thinking it was another word, well, at least I have your attention. This one simple 4-letter word has had way too much control in our everyday lives. It lurks in the dark corners of our minds, and it tells us lies. Fear can paralyze us and keep us from reaching our true potential. But fear can also spur us on to do great things as well. Now let me be clear, the fear that I'm talking about goes beyond our survival instinct. Fear itself is not real. It is the product of the thoughts that you create in your mind. Danger, on the other hand, is very real, but fear is a choice. Now, let me explain. Jumping out of a perfectly good airplane is not normal. That is a danger that relates to your survival. If you go out walking in the woods at night alone, and you come face to face with a bear, that's danger. That's a survival instinct. That keeps you alive. But if you're walking in those same woods alone at night and you hear a noise, what your mind creates in that place is what we're talking about today, fear. Now, recently I engaged a group of experts involved in a scientific study. Okay, that's not even true. It wasn't scientific, it was on Facebook. But the people were experts on their own fears. So I asked the question, what do you fear? I got over 50 responses on the post and in my inbox. Spiders, heights, and claustrophobia topped the list of natural fear. But I was really, really surprised to see the similarities of the fears that can either cripple us or spur us on to something better. Some of those fears included fear of someone seeing past our exterior and seeing just how broken and fragile we are inside. Fear of our loved ones not knowing how much we care. The fear of being forgotten. The fear of being alone. The fear of being unlovable. The fear of not having an impact in this world. The fear of losing someone we care for. Fear of losing a relationship. Not being good enough. Of being a burden. Of getting old or dying too soon. Fear of not being in control was one of the top ones. The number one that I received, though, was the fear of failure. So the next day I asked another question. What has fear kept you from doing? Again, I got more responses than I expected. This time there were less on the comment side and more in my inbox, and I'll just give you some of those. I would have made friends in high school. I would have spoken up for people. I would have traveled. I would have played sports in school. I would have finished my degree. I would have asked the girl out that I liked. I would have gone back to college sooner. But the one that really stood out to me was from one of my teachers at seminary. And she said, I would have taken an internship at the Children's Television Workshop working for Sesame Street. But I was afraid to live in New York City. Fear robs us of experience and joy. It keeps us from doing something we either want to do or that we should do. And in researching for this sermon, I found there are hundreds and thousands of quotes about fear. And here's a few of them. Fear is false evidence appearing real. You can forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. Don't let your fear of what could happen allow nothing to happen. Fear defeats more people every day than any other thing in the world. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. Let your faith be bigger than your fear. Never let your fear decide your fate. There is no illusion greater than fear, and the list just goes on. There was one quote by Dr. Smiley Blanton, who was a colleague of Norman Vincent Peale. He says, fear is the most subtle and destructive of all human diseases. What he meant by that, fear kills dreams. Fear kills hope. Fear can put you in the hospital. Fear can age you. Fear can hold you back from doing something that you know deep down in your heart that you can or should do. What's the benefit? What is the benefit of allowing fear to hold you back? What is the benefit of giving up on yourself, of giving up on your life, of giving up on doing the right thing? What's the benefit of letting fear control you? Now, unfortunately, I know this all too personally. Fear has kept me from following my dream until very fairly recently. I wanted to follow this dream of being a pastor, but I was afraid of failure. I was afraid of letting people down. I was afraid of not being good enough. I was afraid it paralyzed me. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm still afraid of those things, but I'm not going to let those keep me from trying anymore. I refuse to let my children see fear win. I want them to see that their dreams and their hopes are bigger than the fear in their life, more real than the fear that they'll experience day to day. Now, I'm sure a couple of you are thinking, this is a great motivational speech, and I thank you for thinking it's great. But we're in a church, and what does this have to do with worship? Well, I'll tell you, it has everything to do with worship. A lot of you will hear me say that grace is the overarching theme of the entire Bible, both Hebrew Scriptures and New Testament, and that is true. But fear is everywhere in the Bible. And if you do a word search for just the word fear or afraid, you'll get over 5,000 results. And that doesn't count terror, dread, or other words. But the thing that's true in every single case of fear in the Hebrew Bible or New Testament is this: it can be overcome. Emmanuel means God with us. And that's a great thing. And it's enough to get us to face our fears. Will there be mistakes? Yes. Will it be easy? No. Will there be issues along the way? Most assuredly. But it's not the end. Death is not even the end. And I'll prove it. When things look the worst in the Bible, fear did not win out. Now, normally, as you know, I study a lot of Hebrew Scriptures, and you would expect me to go to Moses or David or Joseph or Esther. But this being the Easter season, we'll talk about Jesus. Jesus didn't let the fear of failure, rejection, or death determine how he thought, spoke, or acted. He knew he was going to be rejected. He knew he was going to be betrayed. He knew that people, including his own disciples, those who he walked with daily, just didn't get it. He knew he would be humiliated. He knew that he would be tortured. And he knew that he would be killed. But Jesus also knew that death was not the end. Now, did anyone here know that even though the death and resurrection happened, there might never have been a group that followed the way? There might never have been a Christianity as we know it today? It's true. The resurrection could have come and gone, and no one would have ever known. See, different Gospels have different things happening, even around the resurrection. But the Gospel of Mark, the earliest of the Gospels, has the most interesting ending. Well, actually, it has three endings. The original ending, and then the additional ending when it came out on DVD. Okay, that bombed. Just kidding. They added another ending to Mark sometime later because it just didn't make sense. Now, if you want to see for yourself, turn to Mark 16. We'll go over here in a second, but I wanted to give you some time. Now, all through Mark, Jesus would heal people, and he would say, go and tell no one. When he performed a miracle, he'd say, don't tell anyone what happened here today. Now, realize some of these people didn't tell people, and that's how Jesus got such a large following. And even though Jesus is fulfilling prophecy after prophecy after prophecy right under their noses, the disciples can't even figure out that he's the Son of God. So the entire book, all the way through Mark, is shrouded in this secrecy of who Jesus really is. Now, we as Christians know who he really is. We kind of know the spoilers at the end. And that makes the ending that much more intriguing. And here it is. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they could go and anoint Jesus' dead body. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they came to the tomb, and they were saying to each other, who's going to roll the stone away? Well, when they got there, they realized the stone had been rolled away. And going into the tomb, they saw a young man in a white robe seated on the right side, and they were startled. And he said to them, don't be alarmed. You're looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has been raised. He isn't here. Look, right there is where he was. Now go and tell his disciples, especially Peter, that he's going ahead of you into Galilee. You'll see him there just as he told you. And this is the final line of the original ending of Mark. Overcome with terror and dread, they fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. That's it. That's the original ending of Mark. Mark was written about 70 CE after the destruction of the temple, and like I said, it's the earliest of the four Gospels. And some time later, someone added verse 9, and then someone else added a verse 9 through 20. But why? Why would they do this? It wasn't because of anything to do with Jesus being seen or unseen after the resurrection. It was because no one would be following this movement called the Way at that time if they had truly let fear win. So I argue that they overcame those fears. And they told someone, and that someone told someone else. And the oral tradition carried on until the book of Mark was finally written. All the way until today. Because if those first visitors would have remained silent, I don't think there would be a Christianity today. So you see, fear is everywhere in the Bible. But the Bible is a library of stories of people overcoming those fears because God is with them. Look at all they did. Look at where we are now because of what they did, what the fears they overcame. The exciting thing is you're a part of that story. And your story is still being written. So what are you going to do? What will you overcome because God is with you? Now it's true that God loves you just the way you are. But God loves you way too much to let you stay that way. So I'm going to ask you one last question. What would you do if you had no fear? Now whether you're 8 or 88 or anywhere in between or on the outsides of those, that you still have dreams. And those dreams might be simple, but they might be complex. But that's your dream. Your part of the story. Your contribution to God's kingdom and to our world. I don't know what dream that you have. But here's what I know. That dream that you're holding in your mind, it's possible. See, sometimes we can't say with confidence, I can do that. But we can say, it is possible that I can have my dream. But most people, they won't follow their dreams because of fear. So today, even if just for this moment, remember that God is with you and you can overcome those fears. So today, we go from this place, and I encourage you, chase your dreams. I don't know why I thought there was something in between these two. All right, let's all stand for our benediction. Hey, I'll learn this one of these days.
Did your church?
All right. To each one, reach one.
To each one, teach one. To each one, share with one. And to each one, care for one. In the love of Christ, for Christ loves you. And let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. And sings my soul, my Savior, God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. And sings my soul, my Savior, God to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
And all the people said,
Amen.
okay, or send me a reminder.
Is that working? Otherwise, we'd have got out of here 5 minutes early.
Saturday.